Hey there everybody, Eric from Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now recently at Blade Show 2019, I was able to cover the Olight booth. So first and foremost, before I get too far, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at Olight for their continued support and for providing this product for review. So as I mentioned, I was at the Olight booth and the representatives from Olight presented me with this beautiful little flashlight. What you see here is a special edition Olight S1R2 Ti Baton. Now the special edition series has a number of different lights. There is the summer, winter, autumn, and spring edition. And what you see here is the autumn edition light. Now each one of these lights has a slightly different specification. They're fairly close, but there is a little bit of a difference between them. So again, today as I talk through this, I'll give you a little bit of the differences between them, but I'm mainly gonna focus on the autumn edition, which you see here. So I couldn't wait to get my hands on this light. I really wanted to start to use it and test it out. So I took it out of the package real quick, got this in my pocket, and it's something I've been using for a few days now. Now I have to say this light has been excellent. I greatly enjoy it, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to talk about, do me a favor, stay tuned. So as I mentioned here, you will see the Olight S1R2 limited edition Baton. This nice pocketable flashlight is just gorgeous. So titanium body, beautifully made, nice quality features, and like I mentioned, there are different ones out there. This is the autumn model. So the first thing I'm going to say, and it's such a subtle detail, but when things are clever, it's worth pointing out. If you look at the box here, this is like the identical same size as the outside of the box. So such a small detail, but I love when people sweat the details. And when you do something like that, it's just clean, it's clever, and it's kind of fun. So now the rest of the packaging is fairly straightforward. So here you'll see the user's manual, this nice little felt-lined pouch, this limited edition card, little instructions telling you to remove that little protector under the battery there, and a storage box for the battery if you choose to remove it. And busting this open real quick, you'll see everything was nicely packaged up. So at this point, I'll put the box aside. We'll talk about the rest of these things. So for me, this does come with a lanyard. It's okay. I'm glad it does. Well, I guess I don't really care. To be honest with you, I will probably never really use this lanyard. Now they do send these kind of set up to thread it through easily. You'll see it has this kind of little needle on here, allows you to thread it through easily, get this through the ends of the flashlight. But for me, not a big deal. I will probably never ever use this. But the rest of this I think is fairly useful. You know, this little instruction card, yeah, not too interesting. However, I do think this card is kind of nice. You know, again, coming back to presentation, just a nice little presentation. It's kind of like a business card, a little bit of an embossed, raised logo here. Just looks very nice. Now, you could say, why would I use this? What potential does this have? Well, I'll tell you, as ridiculous as this can be, sometimes having a card like this is very nice to put in an EDC setup. You never know. Sometimes you could use a card just to get in, clean out a little corner. I've used cards like this just to kind of get into awkward areas and do funny little things. So, you know, it's not really an intended purpose to use this like a tool, but I'll tell you, I may actually use it, so I'm going to keep it in my kit. Now the battery storage box is definitely useful. So this flashlight uses a rechargeable 16340 lithium ion battery. But having this battery storage container, I believe at some point will probably come into play. So nice that it comes with this flashlight. I'll just keep this for future use. Now getting down to it, the most useful components in this kit obviously the flashlight, but this pouch as well, kind of nice. You know, I have different things. I have headphones and little things that I'd like to kind of keep compartmentalized in my EDC kit. So to have this nice little bag, felt lined, nicely constructed, very simple, it's just a good, useful size. And I like Olight products. I don't mind giving them a shout out. I kind of like the idea that I have a little Olight branded bag. So to have this little pouch is definitely nice. And it does have the logo on both sides. So very cool. Now, as I mentioned, you need to be very careful when you look and talk about these specifications. When you look through each one of the editions of the light, it varies depending on what you get. Now, this is the autumn and a titanium body, but if you look, there is spring, summer, autumn, and winter, all of which are titanium, and then you have eternal, which is copper. So depending on which one you get, there is a slightly different body material type. And even at that, you'll notice that there's a difference in the color of the LED light. So spring is neutral, summer is cool, autumn is neutral, winter is warm, and eternal copper is the cool white. So between the neutral and the cool and the warm, you have 3 different LED color temperatures. So I personally like a neutral white. So the fact that the autumn in this case has the neutral white is a bonus for me. You know, I didn't really get to choose which edition. This was a gift. So for me to get this kind of brass color with the titanium body and then that neutral white LED, definitely sweet. So continuing to go through the specifications, all of these lights, with the exception of one of them, have a maximum 1000 lumen output. So the spring, summer, autumn, and eternal, all with a full 1000 lumen output. And you get to that by double pressing. So a quick double press, that gives you your full LED output. Another single press, and you'll see the light turns off. So the difference with the winter being that you drop down to 850 lumens for your maximum output. It's not a massive difference. Now, I'm not completely certain, and I'm certainly not an expert, but the difference in the output could simply be that the autumn, summer, spring, and eternal having either cool or neutral white, while the warm white on the winter is just not quite as intense. And even when you look down at the candela output, that's also the case. So the spring and the autumn having 4220 candela, the summer and the eternal with that cool white giving you 5250, but then the winter with that warm white drops down to 3600. So there's definitely something to be said based on the color temperature of the light. So LED aside, you need to also be a little bit careful in terms of the overall run times. You do have a difference depending on which one you have. So on your turbo, all of these seem to have 1.5 minutes full intensity, dropping down to 37 minutes at a lower output. So because of temperature, because of heat buildup, these will self-regulate. So most of these going from 1000 down to 300, with the difference being the winter, again, going from 850 down to 250. So all of these do give you that full 1.5 minutes of full intensity turbo output, but dropping down to lower LED outputs once these warm up. And in a similar fashion, that's the same with the high mode. So this light is interesting where if you press the button once, this is a memory. So I am not on turbo right now. If you watch and I press the button and hold it down, so a long press, this will cycle between the modes. So this is actually low, medium, high. Double press goes to turbo, press it and it's off. And if you hold down and long press, that will go to your moonlight. So moonlight is 0.5 lumens, your low mode being 12 lumens, medium being 60 lumens, high being 600, and again, turbo being 1000. So in my opinion, that is a beautiful spread. I very much like the fact that the low mode, when you single press and keep it in that low mode, the fact that that's at that 12 lumen output, that to me is a sweet spot. I love that lumen output. And I like the fact that I can get to it with a single press. A single press will get me to that low mode, which is great. Now, I don't personally often use that moonlight mode, so a long press into the moonlight I typically won't use, but I will almost always go to the low mode, which is awesome. So the fact that a single press gets you into the low mode, a long press gets you into the moonlight, and then that double click gets you quickly into turbo, I feel like the programming on this is spectacular. Extremely well done. So continuing on, just the small little details. So like for example, when you're running the light, you'll see that right now there's nothing illuminated. However, if I double press, you'll see that light just lights up a little bit green. So it's a little bit of a battery indicator. As I press it, it just lights up fairly quickly. It's going to be hard for you to see, but just a little green light indicating that I have strong battery. Now let's say you wanted to lock this out altogether. If you long press for 2 seconds, you'll see that moonlight mode went on and then off. And at this point, pushing the button does nothing. So you can lock this out, which is nice. A long press, and now I'm back in action. So that works very well. Again, going back through the modes, low, medium, high, turning the light off, long press into moonlight, turning the light off, double click into turbo. So great programming, very enjoyable. Even in this little bit that you've seen the light on, I can feel the heat. So that's an indication that over time this will heat up. You just need to be careful, and that's why these will oftentimes in the higher modes go for intense output for a short duration of time and then dim themselves down to be thermally protected. So I think the run times are very substantial. The fact that in the low mode, which for me is going to do a ton of my work, a ton of my work in that low 12 lumen output, 20 hours of battery runtime. That's just great. I think 20 hours works plenty good. And for me, the fact that this is rechargeable. One of the things I did forget to mention is the fact that this comes with the charging cable. So this is the magnetic charging cable. You will notice that when I apply power, this does light up. So at this point, a little bit of red because it needs to do some charging. It's not fully charged. That will turn to green when it's completely ready. But this magnetic charger working plenty fine for me. Now I do see the argument where this is using basically a proprietary charger. The good thing is, at least for the most part, you get ample run times on this flashlight. So I think the amount that I actually need to charge this is reasonably infrequent. Even if I charge this every single night on my nightstand, it shouldn't be a problem. Then on top of that, I always have some level of a battery bank. I also have power packs at my workplace. So I have plenty of opportunities if I keep this cable with me, or even if I don't think I'm going to run into too many problems in a given day. Now, if I needed a ton of turbo, I'll probably run into trouble. But for me, for the most part, using the low or the medium or even the high mode, I don't see it being too big of a deal. So generally speaking, I am very happy with this flashlight. I think it's beautifully constructed. I absolutely love it, and I think it's going to serve me quite well. Now, I find that most things do come with a little bit of a pro or a con. The clip, I think, can go either way. Now, first and foremost, it's beautifully constructed. Don't get me wrong. It's gorgeous. It's nice and stiff and firm. Now, the first time you thread this out to get the battery exposed and remove that little piece that keeps it protected in the container, you do need to be a little bit careful. This knurling will definitely rub on the clip, so you kind of need to prop it out just a little bit and spin that off. For the most part, it's not a big deal. However, this is quite stiff. I do find that I struggle just a little bit to get this in my pockets. Now, I think it's partly my pants. I have a slightly thick lip on the pocket of my pants that I've been wearing this week while I've been trying this out. And so, depending on what you're looking to do, personally, I like my flashlight to be bezeled down to protect the glass. I think it's a little bit better. So this has that clip, kind of similar to a knife clip, and it works just fine. I just need to kind of spread it myself manually to get it on my pocket. It's a little bit of a downfall. It doesn't really bother me. I'm just making an observation. but I even tried to carry it bezel up as well, and I found that the clip is equally as stiff. So you need to kind of pinch it a little bit, prop that out just a tiny bit, slide it in your pocket, and it'll work perfectly fine. Now I'm being just a bit nitpicky. There's not too much to complain about. I do find that the ergonomics are just a little bit cumbersome. I mean, it's a short flashlight to begin with. You don't have too much meat for your fingers back here, so you're doing a lot of the work with your index finger and your thumb, and you need your thumb right on the button, and what that means is your hand is right on the clip. It would almost be nice if this clip was rotated to 90 degrees from the button so that you don't even touch the clip when you're indexing on the flashlight and pushing on the button. Just a minor detail, not a huge deal. I'm able to deal with it just fine. I'm able to use the light just fine. It's just one of those little things. If this was able to maybe somehow be rotated, now I do see, based on the clip design and the way it's manufactured, this would have to be completely redesigned, but I'm just making an observation. Like I said, if this was actually on the side, I think it would be a little more ergonomic, but I can't really complain. And then another minor detail. If you look at the way this threads on, now everything's perfectly tight right now. The lanyard hole is offset from the clip. It would almost be nice from a just quality craftsmanship and final touch if this was centered right on the clip. They did everything else extremely well. It's beautiful, very nicely made, everything perfectly aligned. But then when you get down to the lanyard hole, it's just like off a few degrees, and I don't understand that. It could either be clocked to the side, it could be intentionally at 45 degrees. I think it should be straight onto the clip just to have a good clean look. But here, where it's just off by a couple degrees, just seems a little bit funny. So at this point, I don't want to give this too much of a harder time. I mean, this thing is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm being very nitpicky. But you know what? This is a premium light. You really pay a good amount of money for it. It's beautiful. It's ergonomic. It feels good. I just think there's a couple of minor refinements if they had a future version that would just put this completely over the top. So here, now that I'm outside, you'll see tonight's one of those kind of nasty nights, just drizzly and gross. Now I'm going to long press here, and putting this into the moonlight mode, you can barely see this wood pile that's right in front of me. In fact, I'm going to come right up to it here. And so that's the thing about this moonlight mode. It's basically for very close, uptight tasks. Does not have a ton in the way of throw, does not have a ton in the way of overall output. It's good where it's not going to hurt your night vision, but to me it's a little bit limiting. So now, clicking onto the low mode, you'll see this does have a fairly nice even beam, no real notable hot spot, and no real notable flood. It's just kind of like this nice even cone of light, and this again being the low mode. So 12 lumens for me is excellent. You can do most things. So here, as I walk through my yard, I can pretty much see exactly what's going on. Now I can't illuminate all too far off into the distance, as you see, barely able to make things out in the distance, but it does do enough to get me where I need to. So if I wanted to conserve battery, or I didn't want something terribly bright, this low mode would definitely work. Now long press, here you'll see, that's the medium mode. So medium to me is excellent for most tasks. You get a good long run time, a decent throw, that nice even beam. You'll see here casting just a beautiful amount of light. Now this is considered to be neutral white, so it's not warm, it's not cool, just that nice neutral color, which I greatly enjoy. Does seem to be just a touch on the warm side, if anything, just a little bit towards warm, but certainly not very warm, just a little towards warm. It's not cool, it's not warm, it's neutral. And here you'll see just a good amount of light. It does not overexpose the camera very much, so you'll see just a good quality beam illuminating everything just so nice. Getting out towards my fence, illuminating out into the corner, no problem at all. Now here, just for the demonstration, you can see that green run light a little bit better. So there, that green run light indicating the battery is good and charged, it's on and operable, and so that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier, just that little green indicator light. Now another long press. Here you'll see this is the high mode. Now I'm really starting to throw some light, illuminating this pile here quite bright. You'll notice there is a definitive sort of hot spot in the middle. Now it's not that the beam itself has a crazy hot spot, I mean a little bit, fairly even, a little bit of flood to the side, just that defined hot spot in the middle, but it's not overly bearing like some other flashlights. Good amount of throw, nice and even, illuminating everything beautifully. A good quality output, nice and strong. And now, with a double click, just getting that little extra boost into the turbo mode. So here, fully illuminating out into the distance. You can see everything quite well, very bright. And when you get towards your throw, you'll see here, this tiny little flashlight illuminating that huge tree off the side of my house, very bright, and off into the distance. This 1000 lumen output is substantial. So I'm just gonna sit here for a minute. I can feel this flashlight heating up. It's actually getting quite warm on my thumb. My thumb is still on the indicator, so you see that little indicator light. Putting my thumb on there, I'm just gonna run this till it gets nice and hot, but I'm gonna keep this going for the full run time until it actually dims down on its own. But I can tell you my thumb is getting quite warm. Very warm, actually almost to the point of burning me. So now at this point I've removed my thumb from the button and I'm holding onto the actual body of the flashlight. It is all getting quite warm, the entire body at this point, very, very warm. I am curious when this thing's going to dim down. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to see it on camera. I haven't noticed it with my naked eye yet. I'm not sure if this has actually dimmed itself down or if it's going to go down even further, but at this point, this flashlight definitely quite warm. The head of it is getting extremely warm and is almost uncomfortable to the touch. I'll tell you, a minute and a half is a long time when you're sitting here waiting. Now I would say at this point I've waited a substantial amount of time. I did not notice the light dimming down. That seems a little bit funny to me, so I'm going to turn it off. It is extremely hot. Press it again, and the double press goes into turbo, so maybe it did dim itself down. It's just very hard to see. I'll test that again inside. So for this portion of the experiment, I'm going to take the flashlight, put it onto turbo, and then we're going to see how long it takes until it dims down. So it's actually easier to see this in fast forward, so I'm leaving this at fast speed, but you'll notice that this starts to change at about 1:10 seconds, and it takes a number of seconds for this to fully change from that 1000 lumen output down to the medium mode of 300 lumens. So it definitely did its job. This definitely gets quite warm, something worth considering. It's not a big deal if you're careful. I just think it does get very, very warm. So again, just an indication of why it needs to dumb down those LEDs after a reasonably short run time. But all in all, I have to say I'm very happy with this flashlight. I've been carrying it for a number of days now. It's beautifully constructed. It fits perfectly in my pocket. I love Olight quality. I've always been a fan of their products. I've carried a number of different flashlights, a bunch of different Olight models, and this S1R Baton definitely being another excellent option if you're looking for something that's kind of unique. I like the colors, I like the fit and finish. The limited edition run is definitely cool. Good overall output at that 1000 lumens max output, definitely sweet. The programming's wonderful, and I have to say I'm quite impressed at this Olight flashlight. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at Olight for continuing to work with me on these product reviews. It's the support I get from these companies and what we do for them. It's a good mutual back and forth. I do enjoy it. I greatly enjoy Olight products. They do a wonderful job. They have good overall communication, especially as a reviewer. I appreciate the communication and working with us. So anyway, guys, I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.